Well, hello everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. Today I thought I'd talk about top trends with the Harley Davidson Motor Company. It's been an interesting year and a half for Harley Davidson, but I thought I'd emphasize more of the business aspects, but also how those business issues affect the Harley Davidson motorcycle buyer. If you've been into a Harley dealership anytime over the last year, you've probably noticed a lot of things like higher bike prices, fewer bikes available. Maybe even the local Harley Davidson dealer near you has been purchased or closed. So I thought I'd tackle these and a few other issues. As always, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section. So let's get into the first big trend. Last year, Harley Davidson went from 700 US dealerships to 600 dealerships roughly. That wasn't that big a deal because most of the affected Harley Davidson owners were people who owned only one or two dealerships. With these closures, or there's a lot of transfers of ownership to multi-store dealerships. That's certainly the case for the dealership nearest to me. It's owned by an individual that owns at least a half a dozen dealerships across the country. Same story with his brother. These are typically very large, 45,000, 50,000 square foot dealerships. And there's a lot of implications regarding the multi-store dealership in terms of the buying experience for the motorcycle buyer. So I'll get into some of those details here in a bit. Certainly we saw decreased motorcycle production. Harley Davidson deliberately reduced production last year, but I don't think they or anyone else could have anticipated the huge increase in demand for all things vehicle related. So I think it was unfortunate for them, because if they had still been producing at higher numbers, they could have sold everything they produced last year and this year. But also there were things that unintentionally impacted their ability to produce motorcycles, and that is the slump in the supply chain that really hit production. Harley Davidson at their last quarterly call indicated that their production facilities have experienced a series of brownouts, whereas they would start to try and produce a given model only to find out they didn't have enough parts to complete it. So they would pivot and start producing other models. So that was something that certainly put downward pressure on their stock price after that earnings call. And I think the concern is that if these supply chain disruptions continue as they are, which many believe they will, eventually Harley will just have to shut production altogether for some length of time. Now, as part of Harley Davidson CEO's Jochen Zeitz rewire plan last year, Harley Davidson deliberately pulled out of over 40 international markets. Latin America, India, that was certainly planned. And I'd say the difficulties with logistics right now, that might have been inevitable anyway, but this was a planned pullback so they could focus on their biggest markets in North America and Europe. I mean, it's no secret that Harley Davidson has experienced significant declines in their sales year to year. You can see this chart, their heyday or their peak was 350,000 bikes back in 2006, and in the last handful of years it's steadily gone downhill. 2016, 260,000 bikes. 2017, 243,000. 2018, 228,000. 2019, 218,000. And 2020, 180,000. Now, if you look at Europe, they've had huge sales decreases in Europe, and let's talk about it here. You can see the headline, second worst level out of 11 years. So for the first half of 2018, Harley sold 75,000 bikes in the US, 28,000 in Europe. In 2019, 70,000 in the US, 26,000 in Europe. Jump ahead, 58,000 bikes in North America were sold the first half of 2020, and 81,000 the first half of 2021. But look at Europe. first half of 2020, 18,000 bikes, and so far this year, only 15,000 bikes sold. It's brutal. Now, you can imagine the transportation and supply chain disruptions have had a big factor in those declines in sales figures in Europe, but I think the biggest factor are the EU tariffs. At one time, they went up to 56%. For the last several months, they've been at 31%. And again, speaking of trends, it's likely to stay that way for the foreseeable future. You know, Harley Davidson had a strategy a few years ago that they would decrease their US production, put it more in line with demand. So they closed their Kansas City plant and then opened a plant in Thailand. And the idea was they could produce bikes in Thailand, ship them to the European Union, and not be subject to high tariffs. Well, the European Union ruled that a Harley is a Harley no matter where it's made, and it would still be subjected to the 31% tariff, which is just brutal for Harley Davidson. So what's the other big trend, not just for Harley Davidson, but anything vehicle related, are big increases in motorcycle prices. So at my local Harley Davidson dealership, I was looking at a Street Bob 114 earlier this year. This bike retails for just under $16,000 with ABS, and this local dealer was selling them for $20,000, plus another $2,000 in fees. I mean, it's a huge increase over the MSRP. They also had a Road Glide CVO and a Street Glide CVO. These bikes sell for somewhere around the low $40,000 mark, and they were selling them for the low 60s, so a premium of over $20,000 relative to MSRP. Now, I can kind of see both sides of this premium sales price for vehicles, particularly motorcycles that are in high demand and the supply is limited through production cuts and production difficulties due to supply chain effects. But I think these dealers need to be more transparent about it. I mean, Harley Davidson's kind of put them in a bind where they have these 45,000, 50,000 square foot dealerships with 30, 40 people plus on the payroll. And now they're getting far fewer bikes to sell than they had in years past. So their overhead's not going down. A lot of these dealerships are open 7 days a week. I can see where the dealer would sell what the market could bear, but I think it's a poor strategy. I think it's very short-sighted, and I think it's something that Harley Davidson as a company should discourage, because I think it does a lot of damage to the brand. But just take it for what it is. If somebody wants to do that, that's their business. If somebody wants to pay whatever for a motorcycle, that's their business. I just have problems with the deceptive sales practices. I talked earlier in a video last year about the four square close gambit, the 3-card Monty, if you will, of hide the P. You know, I was looking at buying a $28,000 Street Glide Special, and when it was all said and done, when I figured out what the payment was times the number of payments, they were trying to sell that bike for $43,000. I mean, to me, these kind of dealerships, you're pretty well off or pretty well advised to bring your lawyer with you. I mean, that's how bad it seems to be getting. So a trend that is likely to continue for the foreseeable future, and this is to Harley Davidson's credit, is the introduction of new models. They came out with the Pan America. They announced it in February of 2021. But these bikes started showing up at dealerships in May. There haven't been many available for sale. My local dealership got one in the latter part of September this year, and they said that was going to be the last of the Pan Americas produced for this year. And then you've got the 2021 Sportster S that's supposed to be coming out later this year. This bike sells for, or has an MSRP of $15,000. That will be the lowest price new Harley Davidson available, since they've killed off the rest of the Sportsters, first last year in Europe and now here in the US. So that brings me to another video that I did last year, really trying to examine what Harley Davidson's business model seems to be. And I think in that not quite year since I did that video, we see ample evidence they are in fact employing a harvest strategy, and that is trying to get the very last motorcycle dollar from the baby boomer generation. I mean, if you're pretty well established in life, and it usually takes years and years to do that, and you've got the money to plunk down on a $50,000 motorcycle, that's your business. Buy what you want. I have no issue with it. But, you know, I also get a lot of comments in my videos that indicate that people think that Harley's abandoned their core customers, their customer base, the blue collar type person. You know, that they should try and make a much cheaper motorcycle and get people into the brand, and then let them move up the food chain, as it were, into bigger and more expensive motorcycles. It's clear that Harley Davidson has no interest in doing that. So here's a definition of the harvest strategies. In a nutshell, it means if you've got a declining product or market, the idea is to do whatever you can to get as much money from that product line as you can while it lasts. And we've seen, you know, Harley's come out with our Icon series. These are beautiful bikes, MSRP in the low $30,000 range. They came out with a special edition of the Street Glide Special. This color scheme will add about $7 grand to the MSRP, so you're looking at around $35,000. So what does my local dealer do? They take this bike and they put a Stage 4 131 kit in it, which would cost you $6,000 or $7,000 if you already had a 114. So at 35 plus 6, you're at 41. Guess what? They're selling this for $46,000 plus a couple of grand in fees. So you're almost $50,000 out the door, excluding sales tax. If that's not a harvest strategy, I don't know what is. But again, if there are people out there that can afford to do it and they want to do it, that's great. I don't know what generation is going to be left to buy these expensive Harleys once the boomers age out. I don't know if there's enough people doing Bitcoin mining or trading cryptocurrencies or what, but I think it's a very short-sighted business strategy. You know, Harley Davidson has been seeing these dealers charge well over MSRP here this year, and so they decided to boost prices in July by 2%. The rumor is that in 2022 there'll be an even bigger price increase. I would guess over 10%. And Harley Davidson's doing nothing to discourage these dealerships from charging well above MSRP. So if anything, they just want to get in on the act themselves. So you have Harley charging more, production's more limited through a combination of circumstances, dealers not getting as many bikes as they'd like to get. You know, I think these mega dealerships or owners that own multiple dealerships are in the best position to get good dealer allocation of bikes. I think the mom and pop Harley dealer, to the extent that they're still out there, is not long for this world. I think they're going to get squeezed out. And so you're going to be looking at these high volume mega Harley stores where it's just one of many owned by a company or an individual, and it's just buyer beware all across the board. So these are the main trends I see with Harley right now. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and please stay tuned for future videos. Thanks very much.